the final standings. Kind of do our fourth quarter check real quick. Fourth quarter review, if you will, in the season review. AFC North, the Ravens win the AFC North at 10-5-1. The Cincinnati Bengals will make the playoffs this year at 9-7. They'll be a wild card team. Steelers 8-8. They missed the playoffs for the third consecutive year, which has led again to Mike Tomlin losing his head coaching job with the Steelers. The Browns rounded out at 7-9. So the Browns' defense of their Super Bowl crown, they don't even make the playoffs to defend it, but you got to still feel good for the Browns winning that Super Bowl last year, so for their fans. But the Colts are going to win the AFC South at 11-5. Jaguars barely missed the playoffs at 8-8. AFC East, Patriots 13-3. Watch them win the Super Bowl the year after Tom Brady retires with Jacoby Brissett. And the Bills make the playoffs again. Second straight playoff appearance for the Bills in the franchise. And I want to say they made the playoffs in 2018. I'm not sure, but anyway, the Bills are looking like a team that's trending up. And of course, we destroyed the Chiefs 49-16 at their place in the season, but the Chiefs win their division with only 8 wins, so they didn't have really a whole lot to play for in that game. Raiders 6-9-1, Broncos and Chargers round out the AFC West, and the NFC North is won by the Chicago Bears. So the Bears started out 1-3. We beat them in prime time early in the season, but looks like they recovered nicely, and they will get into the playoffs as the champions of the NFC North. The Lions at 7-9, Vikings and Packers finished 5-11. In the AFC South, the Atlanta Falcons will have home field advantage throughout, so the road to the NFC playoffs will run through Atlanta. They finished 14-2, having a great season for them. The Saints will be 12-4, so they'll be a wild card team at 12-4 on a 6-game winning streak to end the season. And the Panthers, of course, 9-7, missing the playoffs, and the Tampa Bay Bucks 5-11. Redskins win the NFC East at 10-6. Cowboys 7-9. Eagles 6-10, and the Giants 5-11. And finally, in the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks win the NFC West at 12-4. The Rams 10-5-1. Will be the second wildcard team, and then Cardinals and 49ers round out the NFC West. And we'll get a look at some of the stats here at the end of the season. Panthers were the 8th best offense, number 1 ranked defense in total yards, 9th in points scored, and doesn't tell me points allowed. But we'll go in here and look anyway. Let's see. Two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8th in points allowed this year. So a good season for the Panthers statistically. But obviously, what did the Panthers in the second half of the year were turnovers. Cam throwing a bunch of interceptions in the second half of the year, multiple defensive touchdowns. That was kind of the downfall of the team. After the 3-4 start, the 0-2 start, then the 3-4 start, winning 3 in a row to get to 6-4. Carolina was in a good position to compete for a wild card spot. I mean, it was looking like after the first half of the season that the NFC South was all but locked up by the Falcons. But Carolina put themselves in a good position to compete for a wild card spot, and then they lose 3 in a row and go to 6-7. And turnovers played a big role in that, as we can see Cam Newton Finishes with over 4,000 yards for the second straight year. 33 touchdowns, and you can see 21 interceptions. That's a career high for Cam. That is not a good number. I mean, the 33 touchdowns, I believe, no, his career high was 35 when he went to the Super Bowl. But 33 touchdowns, but 21 interceptions. I mean, that is way, way too high. We can see Christian McCaffrey ends the season with 1,000 yards for the second time in his career with 6 rushing touchdowns. Cam Newton just under 400 yards rushing this year with 3 rushing touchdowns. And Jordan Scarlett was actually a pretty good closer this year. I used him a lot in the fourth quarters of games. He ends with 279 yards on almost 5 yards a carry. Just kind of that bruising back late in the game that can, run the clock out. He was good in that role for the Panthers. DJ Moore finishes the year with 73 catches for 1,385 yards, 19 yards a catch on average, and 10 touchdowns. He leads the NFL this year in receiving yards. You can see Curtis Samuel as well. He has a back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for him, and it's back-to-back seasons where DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel both have 1,000 yards receiving. He has 5 touchdowns, so took a little bit of a dip in touchdowns this year, but not too bad. And you can see Christian McCaffrey with 99 catches this year, 822 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. So he ends up with 12 total touchdowns for the Panthers. And Damian Ratley, this was a guy that came in after Jermaine Kearse was injured midway through the season. And you can see he finishes the year with 477 receiving yards for us off 35 catches, 8 touchdowns for him. So there was one game where I got a scenario generator where if he had over 100 yards, that he would become a star development player. So I did get that. He's on a cheap deal next year. I think he's making like $600,000 next year. So if he can develop next year with that star development trait and just continue to develop, he could be a steal. But it looks like we're not going to have to go out and spend $3 million on a slot receiver again this year. It looks like Damian Ratley is going to be the guy for that, depending on if we do draft somebody who might be a better overall. We'll have to see what happens in the draft. But Greg Olsen, this is going to be his last year as a Panther. Not sure if he's going to retire, but he ends his last season as a Panther with 448 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. On defense, Shaq Thompson and Luke Kuechly. With Luke Kuechly with 128 tackles, Shaq Thompson with 110 tackles. He battled injuries the first year of the franchise, but this year he was healthy, played all 16 games, and you can see he was very productive for the Panthers. And we'll see. Sack leader was Brian Burns. He led the NFL. He leads the NFL in sacks this year with 20 and a half sacks this year. So 15 and a half sacks the first year, his rookie year. 20 and a half sacks now in the second year. So he is off to a fast start. 41 total sacks already for Brian Burns in just 2 years. So that is I'm sorry, that math was wrong. That is 36 total sacks for Brian Burns. I don't know where I got that from, but you'll have to excuse me on that. I think I put 20 and a half twice, but it's 36 total sacks for Brian Burns. Daniel Linder, 8.5 sacks, 8 sacks for K'Wan Short. He had a rejuvenated season last year, or this past year, after he really was non-existent, at least as a pass rusher, the last couple seasons, but this year with 8 sacks. Ezekiel Ansah I don't think I'm going to bring him back, but he was here on a 1-year deal. He has 7 sacks, so he had a very productive year for Carolina on his 1-year deal. And we look at Melifonwu with 4 interceptions, Dante Jackson 4 interceptions, 3 for James Bradbury, 2 for Shaq Thompson, and we had several guys with 1 interception. So that is a look at our team. I'll kind of like really fast look at the league leaders to finish the season, and we'll get kind of a look at the playoff schedule, and then I'll get out of here. So Baker Mayfield, you can see, leads the NFL in passing yards this year with 42 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Really surprising that the Browns finished 7-9, just looking at those stats. Matt Ryan finishes second. And Josh Allen, he's been killing it in this franchise for the Bills. Andrew Luck, 44 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's actually going to win the MVP this year in the NFL. And you can see Cam Newton, 33 touchdowns, but 21 picks, by far the most in the NFL this year. And Jacoby Brissett, 41 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, over 4,000 yards for him. So, man, just those damn Patriots, no matter who is playing for them, they just continue to ball out for sure. So we'll just kind of look at the league leaders there for passing. For rushing, Ezekiel Elliott once again gets a rushing title with almost 1,500 yards rushing. Let's see where there's Christian McCaffrey with just under 1,100 yards rushing this year for Carolina. Rushing touchdowns is Kamara, tied with Melvin Gordon for the rushing title as far as touchdowns go. And we'll look at receiving now. DJ Moore gets the receiving title for yards and with 10 touchdowns. And Christian McCaffrey tied Julio Jones for the league lead in receptions this year with 99. The touchdown leader was Julio Jones with 13. Also, Jarius Wright with 13. And here's some of the other receiving leaders. You can see DJ Moore with 10 receiving touchdowns this year, near the top of the league lead for receiving touchdowns. So yeah, for defense, Luke Kuechly finishes, looks like fourth in tackles. Denzel Perryman finishes with the league lead in tackles this year. Tackles for loss, J.J. Watt with 21. The sack king this year is Brian Burns with 20.5 sacks. That is 5.5 more than the guy that finished in second place. Interceptions, Desmond King the second leads the league there. We'll kind of look at some of these other sack leaders here. As you can see, Khalil Mack with 14. Aaron Donald with 11.5. Interceptions here. Once again, my guys never show up on the league leaders for interceptions. I'm not sure why. There's James Bradbury with 3, but where's Dante Jackson with 4? Where's Melifonwu with 4? I mean, it's not a big deal, but, you know. Pass deflections, Luke Kuechly. And let's look at forced fumbles. Kuechly again with 9 forced fumbles, so once again getting it done for Carolina. Those are the league leaders. We'll look now at the playoff schedule here. In the wild card, it's going to be the Bengals at the Ravens, The Rams will visit Washington. Bills at Jets, and then Saints at Bears. So that's going to be wild card weekend. I'll be back on the next episode, and we'll kind of look at the postseason results, as well as who the Panthers are going to hire to be the next head coach for the team. And also, we'll look at the off-season acquisitions and free agency, and also the draft. So, I'll see y'all then. And now we'll look at the playoff results. The Cincinnati Bengals upsetting the Ravens on the road, 28-21. So the Bengals, a feel-good story in the NFL this year, and their Cinderella run. Nobody really expected them to do anything this year, so their little Cinderella run continues. The Rams absolutely destroyed the Redskins on the road, 23-3. The Buffalo Bills get the win over the Chiefs, 30-24, and the Saints beat the Chicago Bears, 27-21. So the Saints move on. Bengals, their Cinderella run ends in Foxborough. They lose to the Patriots without Tom Brady, 28-24 Patriots. Without Tom Brady, it's amazing. They're back in the AFC Championship game. When will it end with the Patriots' dominant run? But the Rams beat the Falcons, so that's good for Panthers fans to see the Falcons getting beat pretty bad at home in the playoffs. Buffalo upsets the Indianapolis Colts, who still have Andrew Luck in my franchise. And then the Saints are going to the NFC Championship game as they beat the Seahawks on the road. Bills upsetting the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, 31-24. And then you look at the Rams, they beat the Saints 31-17. So the Rams, everybody in Carolina loves the Rams. They beat the Falcons and the Saints. And then in the Super Bowl, you got to feel bad for Bills fans here. They lose pretty badly to the Rams in the Super Bowl, 33-10. So the Bills still searching for a Super Bowl win. So that's how the season ended. Rams are going to be the defending Super Bowl champions going into 2021. And that is where I will see y'all next with the off-season review.